New leaders emerged to bring that message home with unmistakable clarity. In 1956, Vel Phillips became the first African-American and the first woman on Milwaukee's Common Council. She led a long and frustrating fight for an open housing ordinance that met stubborn opposition at every turn.
I did try to, as I said, to appeal to a sense of justice, but it's quite apparent to me that the members of this honorable body, these cats are just too dumb to know when they have something going for them. It's bad enough to have to deal with a bigot, but when you got a dumb bigot.
Local issues mirrored national concerns. As the civil rights movement gathered momentum in the South, it created new dreams, new leaders, and new tensions throughout the country, including Milwaukee. Education was one of the first flashpoints. In the early 1960s, an interracial parents group charged that Milwaukee's public schools were intentionally and illegally segregated. Their leader was Lloyd Barbie, a Memphis-born, Wisconsin-educated lawyer and state legislator. He argued that by limiting students' contacts with other races, the system denied both black and white children an equal education. Barbie and his fellow activists formed a group called MUSIC, the Milwaukeeans United for School Integration Committee. MUSIC organized demonstrations, boycotts, and a network of freedom schools to make public officials change their tune. The MUSIC protests marked the debut of one of the most unlikely civil rights leaders in America, Father James Groppi. A product of Bayview's Italian community, Groppi was a young priest serving a North Side parish at the time. After a 1965 trip to the front lines in Selma, Alabama, he embraced the African-American quest for freedom as his own, becoming advisor to the NAACP Youth Council.
We're going to exercise our constitutional right to picket and to protest. We have tried every means possible to bring fair housing legislation to the city of Milwaukee. And we're going to continue to march. It's up to the government of this city and of this state to see to it that we can exercise our constitutional right of freedom of speech. And we're going to exercise that regardless of what the danger. We'll die for that right.
Groppi and the council led a series of highly visible demonstrations, first against a whites-only private club, and then against segregated housing. When the demonstrators targeted a working-class white section of the South Side, the response was particularly hateful. The open housing marches continued for months, bringing Groppi and Milwaukee national prominence.
What I can't understand is where is the leadership in the white community? Well, for heaven's sake, apparently there isn't any leadership in the white community because those people are going to church every Sunday, and I can't understand how they can go to church where they're supposed to be learning the doctrine of Jesus Christ, which is love and brotherhood, and then come out there and call people niggers and black bastards, and wave that Confederate flag and chant, "We want slaves," and everything else.
Throughout the 1960s, the spirit of nonviolent protest clashed with a mood of red-hot rage in America's inner cities. Violence had its day in the last half of the decade. In 1967 alone, there were 164 separate disturbances. Milwaukee's turn came on the night of July 30th, 1967. The riot began on the corner of North Avenue and King Drive, then North 3rd Street. It began like all the others. Someone threw a brick through a store window, and soon chaos reigned. Fires, looting, gunshots, and sirens broke the customary Sunday night silence. As events spun out of control, the National Guard was called out. was not until 3 a.m. that the streets were quiet again, and tensions remained high for days. The final toll, 3 deaths, nearly 100 injuries, and 1,740 arrests.
The general area of the disorder was from State Street to Burleigh and from 1st Street to 5th Street. So, accordingly, Chief Breyer has sealed off that area. The police department is taking all necessary precautions. The National Guard will remain on duty as long as necessary. And if we should need more help, we will get it. So remain in your homes during the curfew hours, and please ignore loose talk, which in itself can incite new discord.
The 1967 riot was a civic tragedy, but other cities experienced far worse violence. What set Milwaukee apart was the speed and scale of the official response. Mayor Henry Meyer and Police Chief Harold Breyer locked down the entire city, banning traffic, closing bars, and barricading freeways. Their actions certainly checked the spread of violence, but they also magnified the impact of the disturbance. Residents of the entire metropolis felt they were under siege, and high levels of fear were still evident months later.